Hey, welcome back to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. I'm your host, Coach Zach. I'm here with Coach Brandy and Coach Caden. And today we are talking about what we would do if we were fat. So hang on for that. But before we get into today's episode, we want to give a shout out to a client of the week. And this week's client is Liz Hendricks, who is absolutely crushing it. And one thing that I noticed about Liz is she has been so consistent recently. And I'm sitting in my office and it seems like every day I kind of peek out, I hear somebody come in, I peek out around the corner and it's her like coming into the gym. And I'm just like, that a girl, right? Like that a girl. And she's like working hard and she's just crushing it. She's looking amazing. I'm just so proud of her. She's doing so awesome. And I wasn't sure when she came in and signed up. I was like, is she going to stick this out? I don't know if she's going to do it or not. Her daughter's here. Her daughter's amazing, but she's just, man, the consistency. That's number one. People, that is the number one KPI, the key performance indicator of whether somebody's going to be successful or not is just consistency, like showing up, right?
Yeah, and that's the word that comes to mind when I think of her recently as well, is she is so consistent and just crushing it in the gym.
Yeah, and Caden's just making her get after it.
Yeah, better be ready for our next workout, Liz.
All right. Okay, guys, so I came up with this topic a few weeks ago and I was like, it just popped into my head and I was like, you know what? Maybe we should have a conversation of if we were in a situation where we were overweight, we were struggling in similar ways as some of our clients struggle with, then, you know, maybe we should talk about what strategy we would have and how we would approach our weight loss, right? And it kind of depends. There's a spectrum of how overweight somebody is, and I think that kind of dictates the strategy that you would take, right? So we have members that come in and they're not fat by any means. It's like they need to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds. Maybe they had, several kids over the course of a decade, and hormones are changing and things are going on. And it's like, they just have gained a couple of pounds a year here and there. And then all of a sudden they get to a point where they're like, okay, it's time for me to do something for myself. Right. I think that situation is totally different than the strategy that we would take for somebody that's got 80 pounds to lose or 100 pounds to lose. Like, they're different scenarios. So I think this will be fun to kind of talk about, and it might be maybe educational for somebody that's in one of those boats, with us sharing kind of what our strategy would be and our approach would be. So Caden, I'll let you kick this one off, right? If you were a female who had several kids and it'd been 10 years and you gained, you find yourself 30, 40 pounds overweight, doesn't necessarily have to be a female, but like, what would you do? Like, if you found yourself in that situation, it just kind of crept up on you and you're like, hey, now's time for me to do something. What would your approach be?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, so I'm gonna kind of just take it from the perspective of like, I haven't been doing any working out like at this point. Absolutely. And this is gonna be like day one of like getting back into it. So, I mean, realistically, and like I say this with, I don't like want to be disrespectful in any manner, but I say this like full from just truth. And like, losing, I'm gonna say over 80 plus pounds is probably gonna be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. I'm gonna say go ahead and just set your mindset up to know that this is going to be hard, and that's going to be all right. You're going to have a team around you to support you, but you're going to push through it. So day one, getting back into it, I would say literally starting off with anywhere from a 10 to 15 minute walk.
That's the super heavy person.
Super
okay, I
heavy.
want to talk about that. I want to talk about the person that needs like 20, 30, 20 pounds.
20, 30 pounds, day one of going back into the gym. I would start off with a full body exercise or full body workout talking anywhere from 3 to 10 reps, 3 to 8 reps, slowly kind of seeing, hey, how are we moving in these positions? How is that feeling for you? How do we feel after that workout? And I'm gonna say even less specifically post-workout, I wanna know specifically how you're feeling going into that next day. Because day over day, you're gonna fatigue, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna have things that are sore for you. So I'm gonna say finding the balance between what you're doing day over day to continue to show up day over day becomes more important than exercise selection, in my opinion, getting back into it.
So what you're saying is you kind of just need to get moving with a workout program, right? So you're talking about the exercise piece. You need to get moving with an exercise program and kind of figure out like, hey, how many days a week, and can I handle 45 minutes? Can I handle an hour? Maybe it's only 30. But you just got to start getting some momentum and get the body moving multiple days a week.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's kind of starting point 1 there. And then I'm going to say starting point 2, and I guess I've experienced it a little bit like with my mom, but I'm going to say seen it a lot more with like clients is like, I understand that it's easy to give your kids, I'm going to say, quick, easy like snacks, quick, easy meals, things like that. But then in turn, you're going to go and grab those same quick, easy things as well. So I'm going to say, set the standard as the head of your household that, hey, I'm going to eat right and everyone beneath me is going to eat correct as well. And if you can, I'm going to say, slowly start to implement that, I think that would be a great step to taking steps towards losing weight.
All right. Brandy, same scenario.
Yeah, so I think, Caden touched on some really important things that I absolutely agree with. I think resistance training, number 1, nutrition, also number 1, if you can focus on
2 number ones.
I don't know, they're both really important, but really focusing on nutrition, resistance training, and then overall movement. So I think those are the 3 things that I would recommend anyone focus on, no matter how much weight they want to lose, but especially, getting back into it. And then also prioritizing sleep and recovery.
Okay. Sleep and recovery. Have you ever found yourself in that situation, like at one point in life?
Yeah, I have. Well, I've had 2 kids. So after my first pregnancy, I didn't gain a whole lot of weight after my first pregnancy, like maybe 25 pounds. But after my second pregnancy with my son, I gained over 50 pounds. Okay. And had to lose some weight or I chose to. I prioritized losing weight after giving birth. And, it was challenging. That was the first time in my life that I had always, as I'd grown up, always been kind of a skinny kid. Weight was never a problem. So that was the first time in my life where I really, I looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, I don't recognize the person that I see in the reflection that's, staring back at me. That's not me. So I had to really prioritize, change my lifestyle at that point. I had always been an active person, but had kind of a difficult pregnancy. And so I wasn't as active throughout my pregnancy. Prioritized ice cream and things that I don't normally eat. So I would say my nutrition was not on par for that. And so I really had to take a look at, okay, and it's challenging when you're a new mom and you're not getting much sleep and, your baby's your priority, but decided I wanted to be healthy and try and lose that weight as quickly as I could. So I prioritized movement. As soon as my doctor cleared me to start exercising again, I found time to exercise even though I was tired, and then really prioritize nutrition. So I feel like that is the point in my life where nutrition became really important. And then making sure that wasn't just I wasn't going on a diet. I wanted to make a lifestyle change, something that was sustainable. So focusing on a sustainable, healthy eating lifestyle from that point forward really made a big difference.
Psychologically and emotionally, how hard was that for you to get started and kind of just come to the conclusion and the determination of, hey, I'm going to start taking care of myself and getting back into shape no matter what, right? Because not easy. You got two young kids and, not getting much sleep, like you said.
Yeah.
What was the what did it take for you to get to that point where it's like, hey, I'm going to exercise. I'm going to fix my nutrition. No matter what.
For me, it was about how I felt, and I did not feel good.
Okay.
I did not feel like I just, I'd say felt depressed. I didn't feel good. I felt unhealthy, wasn't able to do the things that I wanted to do. I had, low energy, all of those things. And so I just kind of really reflected on that and thought, moving forward, that's not how I want to feel moving forward. So it was, I think, an easy transition in terms of mindset, because I just knew that moving forward, this is not how I want to feel. I want to feel healthy. I want to have energy. I want to, to be able to run and play with my kids and to be a role model for them and to, be healthy and longevity was and still is a priority for me. So being able to do the active things that I want well into my older years.
And from the time that you started prioritizing ice cream and got out of shape to the point where you were like, hey, I'm doing something about this.
Yeah.
Like, how long was that? Was it like years? Was it
no.
just a year?
No. I would say that it didn't take me very long to lose the weight. I would say maybe 3 to 4 months to lose that amount of weight.
Wow, okay.
A lot of it, I would say.
You were fast tracked.
A lot of it was water weight. I had retained a ton of water. But, I was able to lose that weight pretty quickly, and I really attribute that to nutrition first and foremost, movement, and resistance training, those 3 things.
Okay. Yeah, I think that like your scenario is really where people bounce back really quickly, right? Because you'd been active before that, you had maybe a couple of years where you were having kids, and then you kind of just fell off a little bit, but you bounce back really, really quickly. And in those situations, somebody comes in, they meet with me, and they kind of follow that same trajectory. Bouncing back is pretty easy, right? I think that when somebody struggles, it takes like several years for them to gain the weight. It's like 5 pounds here, 10 pounds here, and then all of a sudden they find themselves 30 pounds overweight, 40 pounds overweight. And for that person, right, if I'm that person and put myself in those shoes, I think the first thing that I'm going to do is recognize, hey, it's taken me several years to gain this weight. Right? Not a year, not a pregnancy, right? It's taken me several years to gain this weight. It's probably going to take me a little while to lose this weight, right? Like for me, that's number one. Is this didn't happen overnight. It's not going to go away overnight, because we know people coming in, they underestimate how long it's going to take them to get results. That's number one. If I'm in that situation. And then number 2 is I'm going to determine, like Caden said, like how many days a week am I going to exercise? And then what does that look like, right? Maybe I'm starting a little bit slower and building up to something, but a little bit slower just means like less intense. It doesn't mean less frequent, right? So if I'm going to do a full like time assessment and go, realistically, like how many days a week can I work out and when, right? So I'm going to establish that. And then I'm going to pick protein as the one thing that I'm going to focus on for my diet, right? If I've kind of let myself go and my diet hasn't been good, I haven't been working out the way that I should, that's really it. Like, okay, this is going to take me a while. I'm going to have to be consistent. I'm going to work out for this long, this many days a week, and I'm going to nail my protein, and I'm not going to worry about anything else for now. That's my starting point, right? If I'm in that situation. Let's Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, right? Well, before we do that, right, and for somebody that's in that situation where they need to lose 40 pounds and it's just kind of crept up on them over time, and they're like, hey, now's the time for me to prioritize myself and do this. Once I would commit to that, I would also kind of have to mentally tell myself there's no turning back. There's no stopping. There's no turning back, right? I think if you get into that situation where you recognize my energy levels are low, I don't feel good, right? This isn't necessarily like who I am or what I want for the rest of my life. It's like determining, hey, I'm going to work out this many times a week. I'm going to prioritize these things. It's like you're determining that for life, not for, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and then I'm going to go back to my old ways. If that's me, like
right.
if I've done that, right? Because otherwise you're going to lose 10 pounds and you're going to quit. That's what's going to happen. And then you're going to gain 20 pounds back. We see that all the time.
The yo-yo dieting.
And people, you know, the 20 pounds or the 30 pounds is like the breaking point for them where they feel like, hey, I need to do something about this. I need to lose 30 pounds. Realistically, I need to lose 30 pounds. But what ends up happening is they lose 10 and they feel better about themselves and then they quit. And then they repeat that cycle over and over and over again, each and every time getting heavier and heavier and heavier and only returning to a certain, like only returning to half of what they were actually setting out to accomplish at best, right? So it's got to be like a complete mindset shift. Let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, right? Somebody that is really 80, 100 pounds overweight and they've got a long, long way to go, right? If I'm that person, the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do some soul searching, right? Because I don't think that anybody gets into that situation if they value themselves the way that they should value themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't let their health get to that point, right? To a point where it's like, hey, this is risky. You could die because you could have a heart attack or some other obesity-related disease. I think that's the starting point for that person is like, hey, I'm worth more than this, right? Like my health and my life and enjoying myself is more important than the junk food that I'm eating, right? And the things that are causing the issue. And before, I mean, getting moving is really important. But before I would even do that, like I would probably go and talk to a therapist or somebody and see like why it is. A lot of times they don't even know, right? Mm-hmm. Like Brandy, Caden, you guys are never going to let yourself get to that point. There's a reason for that, right? And I think the only way that somebody lets themselves get to that point is just because like something's going on psychologically that they need to address before they ever are going to be able to stick with something and lose the weight.
Yeah, I think part of that or related to that is really looking at, so reflecting on your habits, like your daily routine, and maybe that's, you know, over the past several years, like what of my current habits or my current routine that has led you to this situation, what has that been? It's like, you know, lifestyle, is it work related, is it stress related, you know, relationship related, like there are many different factors.
Was there a death for somebody that was close to you or something? Yeah, something like that it kind of all started with.
Right. So I think it is important to reflect on daily routine and habits and what led to where you are now. But then I think it's also important to think, okay, so if you're in that process of like visualizing, then you want to visualize where you want to be, where you want to go, what it means or what it would feel like or what it would look like to be a healthier version of yourself, and then think about those daily habits that can take you to get to that point in your life.
I would also suggest that somebody visualize what it's going to look like if they don't change it. Right? I would say both. Like do the one that what it looks like if you don't change first, and then do what it's going to look like if you do.
If you do nothing versus start taking some action.
Absolutely. right? And then Caden, you kind of started down this path initially, right? So like from a exercise standpoint, from a nutrition standpoint, like what is the person that needs to lose 100 pounds? Where do they start?
Yep. So I'm going to say initially starting off on that journey, I would go super low impact. So we're talking bike, swimming pool. I mean, I guess if the knees are feeling good, we can go for a treadmill walk outside. I'm going to say something pretty low impact with a combination of some kind of, I'm going to say, low impact exercise. And again, depends person to person, if they got pain in elbows, shoulders, knees, depending on what's kind of going on. But I'm going to say, make sure that you're really kind of, I'm going to say, listening to your body and paying attention to, hey, what's hurting day over day? Where are the weak points that you're finding? Where are the strong points that you're finding? And go ahead and I'm going to say kind of structure, I'm going to say your week around, hey, these are the weak points, here are my strong points, and then I'm going to say slowly start to kind of build and adapt, and week over week you're going to find yourself, hey, I'm going a little bit further. But I'm going to say push through that first month. That first month is going to be miserable. And I know I've said this a few times on here, but I just can't stress that enough. And I say this with a 100% passion behind it. And I've had the opposite problem to where I've lost a lot of weight. Coming out of college, I was a Division I athlete, 170 pounds. 2 years out of college, I was 128 pounds at 5'10". I've got myself back up to 165 at this point, and I hit a point at about a year and 4 months into it where I stared at myself in the mirror for a good hour and a half, and I found myself in tears. I was angry, and I hated myself. And I hated myself for a good 2 years after that point to get to the point that I am to today, and that's training people and getting to work with people that I love working with. So I'll just say that just because it is going to be the hardest journey of your life, losing a bunch of weight. Don't be afraid to fail, because failure is going to be the only point that you're going to hit to where we're going to find, hey, we can take that next step forward now. If you don't fail, you're never going to move forward.
You think they're like at that point already, like when they're determining to do something. So what you're saying is like, don't quit no matter what.
Don't quit.
Like determine
yes,
that it's okay to fail. It's okay to miss a workout. It's okay to not work out as hard as you thought that you should have or were capable of that day, but just don't quit.
Don't quit. The goal is never to be perfect on any single day that you have. The goal is just to find 1% better, and if you can get 1% better every single day, by the time the year passes, you're going to be 365% better than the person you are today, and I want to see that for you.
What do you think, Brandy? What do you...
I love that message, Caden. I think that's really important. And from an exercise standpoint, yes, at that stage, yes, just moving. Consistency is so important. Yes, you're going to have hard days, and don't take that failure as a setback. Use that failure to motivate you to move forward and to keep at it. I also think, the nutrition piece is really important. And if you're trying to lose that amount of weight, going into a caloric deficit is going to be important. You're going to have to reduce the amount of calories that you're eating to lose weight. So, hire a nutrition coach. I think especially if you're 80, 100 pounds overweight, you likely need a nutrition coach to help guide you through that process. So I think that's really important. There can also be a lot of support that a nutrition coach or a strength coach, both can help guide you through that process, because it is going to be a tough process. Sticking with it, consistency, and focusing on moving your body, resistance training, because as you start to lose body weight, it is important to resistance train so that you can maintain and then eventually start to gain skeletal muscle mass, because skeletal muscle mass is so important as you get older. And a lot of times if you're just focusing on the caloric restriction, you may lose body weight, but you may also lose skeletal muscle mass as well. So it's so important that you're resistance training and prioritizing protein throughout that process.
Here's what I'm doing if I'm 100 pounds overweight. After I kind of talk to a therapist and figure out why I let myself get to that point, I'm going to become obsessed with everything, health, fitness, exercise. If I'm not able to do that on my own, I'm going to hire somebody to make sure that they're holding me accountable to it. But for me, the people that I have seen be the most successful with that big of a weight loss goal are the ones that do a complete 180, from eating garbage, right? And not being able to control that, to then being like, you know what? I'm going to invest in educating myself about this and working out and becoming addicted to it. And they essentially become almost like one of us, like a trainer, where it's like they know exercise science, they know nutrition, right? They know what their macros should be, and they're measuring everything, they're weighing everything, they're doing meal prep, they're training, they're doing fasted cardio in the morning, they're strength training in the afternoon, they're working out 5-6 days a week. Like, to me, that's the route that I'm going if I'm like got to that point, right? Because in my experience, those are the only people that I've seen that are actually capable of doing it, right? And we've had some members like that are at that point, and they're the ones that are showing up, and it's not a chore, maybe at first, but it's not a chore for them to come to the gym. It becomes something that is, for them, it's just like they want to be here, and they are lifting as heavy a weights as they possibly can, and they're working harder than the person next to them, and they probably are leaving here and they're just like, man, that was awesome, I got after it today. And then they become like a super athlete. I'm going to follow in those people's example, because everybody else with really just not, they're going 100% in and saying, this is the only way now for me. The other people, they don't stick with it. And if I were in that situation and I'm going to do something about it, I'm not going to be the person that's not going to stick with it, because what's the point, right? Like, there's a lot of it's uncomfortable, right? Yeah. to do this. So yeah. But you pick your hard, I guess. So all right, guys, we're gonna leave it there. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with more great stuff. Thank you so much for listening to the Healthy Living Scottsdale podcast. Do you have a question that you'd like for us to answer live on the podcast? If so, all you need to do is head over to the Apple Podcast app on your iPhone and do 3 simple things. First, leave us a rating and review telling me what you think of the podcast. In that review, ask anything you want related to health, fitness, or nutrition. And if you want a shout out, leave us your Instagram handle or name. That's all you have to do. Then listen to hear your questions answered live on the next Q&A episode.